Reporters for Vice News travel the world, putting a human face to the world's most important stories.
There's a solid wall of riot police officers.
But now, we introduce you to them.
They're doing CPR on one of the casualties here. We don't know if he's going to make it.
This is Field Notes, a show that sits down with our reporters to find out the stories behind their stories and how they got so close to the action.
Feeling pretty good about that?
In this episode, we meet the team who went to 3 different continents to figure out if a new video game that's paying users to play is an economic lifeline or an old-fashioned pyramid scheme.
Go!
You play Axie?
Yeah, I play Axie.
You've got it on your phone right now?
Axie.
You've got it too. Do you play Axie Infinity?
So lang boss, nakasanayan ko na lang din po kasi maglaro kaya...
What do you make more money doing? Selling slippers or playing Axie? Same. Okay, cool. How many hours every day do you play?
3.
You play for 3 to 4 hours? Wow. And do all of your friends play also?
Yeah.
So because of the video game, you were able to move from a hut into a house. You really leveled up.
Yeah.
So Krishna, you are normally seated where I'm sitting right now. How does it feel to be a guest on this show?
Honestly, I'm a little nervous. This story has a lot of different elements and a lot to explain, and it was hard to do that in the time that we, had for the story itself. But I'm excited.
All right, okay. So to kind of recap what this story is about, and correct me if I'm wrong, the story starts out in the Philippines. And you're reporting on a video game called Axie Infinity that people are playing to earn cryptocurrency. Did I get that right?
Yes. So basically, it's like a new innovation on a genre of video games called play to earn. So the idea being, when you play a video game, you rack up points, you rack up items in the game. It's all very fun, you're invested in it. But what if those points that you racked up could be converted into real money?
Right.
And what if the system of the game, an ecosystem, so to speak, could reward you for the time spent playing the game? That's the pitch, basically.
Right.
And I guess what we saw through reporting it is the pitch is a lot more complicated than that, and it keys into all these larger conversations about what the metaverse is, what cryptocurrency and the crypto marketplace looks like, and what it does for people, especially people who are economically vulnerable. And maybe even what the future of work looks like. So
Right.
there was all these different kind of trajectories in this very silly little video game where furry creatures battle each other and you win tokens for it.
Okay, but this is different from gambling, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that there is a way to look at your explanation and say, oh, well, that sounds like gambling to me, right? Playing a game to earn money.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a difference there. What is it?
The difference is that if you lose in the game, like if you lose one of these battles, you don't actually lose money. You might lose money if you buy one of these characters, and that's part of the details here. You have to buy a team of these characters, and they're NFTs, and those NFTs are an ownership investment. So it's possible that that asset could go down in value, which of course, it has, certainly. But it's not gambling in the traditional sense of gambling on an outcome.
All right, so that's the difference. And then you mentioned NFTs. Can we just go over how NFTs exactly play into this game? Sean, do you want to take this one?
Right, yeah. So each of the characters is an NFT, which is defined as a non-fungible token, which if anybody was following crypto in the last year would understand, it's basically digital assets. It's basically, you can create ownership of digital assets. And so these Axie creatures themselves have their own store of value outside the game, you could say. Like some Axies are more valuable than others. So there's a marketplace outside of playing the game in the creatures themselves.
Wow.
So
okay.
it gets into the whole idea that this game is bigger than just a game and earning money. It's building its own economy. That's what they're selling.
Edward, you've reported on Axie Infinity, you've reported on cryptocurrencies in general, like a ton. What do we need to know about SLPs, the cryptocurrency in question?
So you have this game where you're supposed to earn the crypto, and there was an attempt to create an ecosystem where basic laws of economics might drive the price higher, right? So you generate these tokens through the battles. You can redeem them for other cryptocurrencies, but you can also, use them and other tokens that you might earn to try and mint new Axies, essentially, and that these could then be tradable, and sold on the secondary market. But that the idea was that the more valuable your Axies are, the more SLP that they can generate. And so you want more valuable Axies. You want to trade for more valuable Axies. You want to constantly generate more SLP, and then you want to flip that.
I guess one of the questions that I have for you is SLP, this cryptocurrency. I don't think it's a cryptocurrency that most people have heard of, right? So what's up with that? Why is this the one that is used through Axie Infinity?
Well, they made their own ecosystem, right? They made their own blockchain called Ronin, where they wanted to have transactions happen that would be cheaper than on the regular Ethereum blockchain. The idea is basically that if you were to do it on Ethereum and you were supposed to use, cryptocurrencies based there, it would be more expensive to then turn them into SLP, turn them into other tokens that they wanted to use in their game. So if they made this own ecosystem, transactions would be faster, quicker. So a lot of projects kind of follow this line of logic where if we just make our own token, there's no use value for it except the thing that we have for you. And some go about by...
So it locks you in.
Yeah, locking you in and trying to subsidize and incentivize you to use it, essentially.
Wow, okay. I feel like I'm starting to kind of get the landscape here. So you arrive in the Philippines in this small-ish village?
Yeah, it's a city.
Oh, it's
a small, agricultural city kind of in the middle of the main island, Luzon, called Cabanatuan City.
And when you get there, it seems like everybody is playing, right? That opening scene, everybody seems like they're playing Axie Infinity. Was that really the feeling on the ground?
Yeah. I mean, that was one of the, kind of eye-opening experiences of it, because you read the reporting that's been done prior, you talk to people on the phone before you go to country, and then you land and you're like, oftentimes a story like this that obviously has a lot of PR hype might not live up to the expectations of wow, everyone's really doing it.
Yeah.
But, we walked around the main marketplace of the town, and if not everyone we talked to who was either working at a stall or at a shop or was a customer either played the game or knew someone who played the game, like the old people, their grandkids played the game, a parking attendant, their kids played the game, he played the game. So it really took off in the city. So it was one of those things where you're just like, oh wow, it really is, it lives up to the hype insofar as the adoption in this one place. And then when we're in Manila, the capital, there was a scene or an interview where we were set up outside, and we kind of, mid-interview, I just started asking people as they were walking by if they had heard of it. And it was 50%. So
wow.
Even there, cosmopolitan, big city,
yeah.
it was there.
Did any of you play this game? Edward, Krishna, Sean, did any of you guys ever try it out?
We all did.
But I spent more time watching people play because it sucks. It's insufferable. So I can't
It's like
spend more
Pokemon.
Yeah,
It's like a Pokemon card game. It's a turn-based battle card game where
really
certain cards do damage, other cards multiply damage,
Right.
other cards are defensive cards, and then each Axie has different capabilities and different strengths and weaknesses. But it's not on the level of Magic the Gathering or even Pokemon, rather, as far as the complexity and the balance of the game, it's a little bit simpler. So there are strategies, and there's a whole ecosystem of people who make YouTube videos, who start Discourse servers where they try to train each other to get better and better at the game. And that kind of keys into the guild system, which I think we should really talk about, because the game proposes this kind of new idea of what a capitalist system might look like, a new country, a new world, a new economy. But when it hit the ground in a real place, it recapitulated some of the old styles of economic systems, namely landholders and non-landholders, owners and renters.
So that's a little weird.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think one thing that I really learned from Edward's reporting was how much the guild system is rife for exploitation, doesn't necessarily reward the people doing the grunt labor with the most, spoils of their time, and ropes people into a weird culture. So you run a rent and Axie shop.
You could call it that. We call it a player-earned gaming guild called Yield Guild Games, or YGG.
And how big are you?
So the community is over 100,000 people now, and the guild is now worth a few $1 billion.
Gabby's company gives players 70% of their SLP winnings, and they train players to get better, win more battles, and get more SLP.
Alright, to the live stream. What's up, Bagag Nation? Hazel, Danica, hello, Alfie. We're gonna be teaching to everyone what is the new functionalities.
At one point in the piece, the term crypto colonialism is used, right? And that implies exploitation. So what exactly about this game is exploitative?
Like everyone who we saw played of their own volition, right? It's not like people are people are in bondage here. But as the exploitation comes from the thought that there's a lot of money to be made in a metaverse, the concept of a metaverse. And the white paper for Axie Infinity delineates all kinds of plans for land ownership in like a fake metaverse land place that it's going to construct, and another governance token that's not SLP, but is a different token called AXS, I think. Many of the people we talked to in Cabanatuan City in the Philippines can't afford to buy the land or like get AXSs, that other cryptocurrency. So effectively, they are shunted out of the ownership class of the fake country that they're building. So they're kind of like, they're not miners, they're minting the blockchain. Every time they do a battle, they're effectively building this country. And so they're building the railroad that the barons will later be able to potentially make money from. Now, of course, as things played out, this metaverse might never actually exist, but the way it was set up promised people a kind of ownership. However, the way it played out was that ownership was always out of reach, and as the more they played, the more the money, the reward went down. And so what do, right? You've sunk hundreds of hours into playing this game. You have a bank account or a crypto wallet of SLP, and a lot of people we talked to were sitting on it. They were like, listen, it's gonna go up again at some point, and then we'll sell it. I'm thinking of it as a savings account. And like that's what we heard a lot of. And so the exploitation isn't as like apparent or the alleged exploitation, I suppose, isn't as apparent as labor crises from the 20th century, but it's this more dubious, or it's a more like kind of like hidden sort of exploitation that is in the paperwork, if you read the white paper, and in the experience of people, if you talk to people who are actually doing it. But if it were successful and it kind of modeled out what like a new kind of work might look like, then it has a lot of problems.
One way that it can be looked at or analyzed, and I found in the reporting helpful, was thinking of it as like a sharecropping system, right? A digital sharecropping system where, these people who are too poor to, afford any of the assets that actually produce anything have to rent it all, give it back to the owner, and are constantly assured that, next season or next time they'll be in a better position to actually buy the asset, but that day never comes. And they do most of the work for free. They do most of the work at like, a low minimum wage rate, but it's advocated as better for them because instead of $1 a day, you're earning $3, $4 a day. I think that's sort of like the model that ended up being held up as something to be proud of and export to other countries in the global south. They talked to people who are in Colombia, in Mexico, in Brazil who are playing with this game because they figured, why not? Like even if I don't actually get to have long-term, permanent wealth, this hoard of SLP I can sit on will one day be something I can exit and build my own businesses, build my own other crypto investments and bets and gambles with.
Right.
And it should be noted that the company is based in Vietnam, like Sky Mavis, who owns Axie Infinity. So it's the crypto colonialism aspect is also more ambiguated than, let's say, a Bitcoin beach or something like that in El Salvador. If you kind of look past the complications, the topography of it, the dynamics, the physics of
funders,
this. Exactly. Well, and then the funders themselves come from Silicon Valley. So it's people in the global north experimenting on a new behavioral system with people from the global south, who they're saying, yo, this is gonna benefit you. Yo, you're gonna be able to get educated in entry into the crypto world. You can become an investor, you can become an owner. All of these selling points that ultimately just kind of fall flat and actually put those people in more precarious economic situations. Because, they're losing money to some degree, but they're losing time. Like this is time in people's lives, right? And like that's something that is given a dollar value or monetary value by like the work that we do. But when you say to someone, this isn't work, this is play, you're also kind of shifting the like goalposts on like, what do we do?
Yeah, it's sort of a confusing landscape in that way. I'm wondering, you talked about how much people are earning, but I want to kind of hear from what you found on the ground. When you were in the Philippines, how much money were people making out of this cryptocurrency, out of this game?
It was kind of a past tense thing. People had earned a lot of money in 2021, and they would tell us about it and made real money. Like this, we met a guy who had, I think he had started as a player, then he became a manager of players, so he had kind of a guild situation, and he had made enough to basically build a restaurant on the side of his house.
Oh, wow.
And he was, at the time he said he was still earning money on the game, but he wasn't selling his SLP. So I feel like there probably wasn't a lot of real money coming in because he was kind of holding, and that's what we generally saw with a lot of people is SLP's value had gone down so much by the time we were filming. Everybody was just holding, you know, so they weren't really
just
selling
waiting for
their
the price to go back up.
They were just assumed it was going to bounce. Yeah.
But in that like boom period, people bought motorcycles that we met. A gentleman like lived in a hut and was able to build himself a house.
Yeah, really.
So it was like life-changing money for people, and for a lot of people.
Right.
The question is like, what happens when the money runs out? What happens when the promises fall flat?
Yeah.
And I think that's what we saw.
Yeah, and it's like we kind of, as we got further along, it seems as if like SLP's value can only go up if new people keep adopting the game. Like the audience has to keep growing, which is essentially, you know, this is an allegation, or you can't really, you know, prove it, but like the word Ponzi scheme came up a number of times, just saying like
feels a little bit like a pyramid scheme. Feels a little bit like you're just dependent on recruiting more people to the game.
Right. The economy itself doesn't create real value, so therefore the only money coming back to people that are that have adopted the game is by new people adopting it.
The critic in your Showtime segment talked about Axie Infinity and the economy that it creates as sort of a fake economy.
The story was, we've got a whole new economic model. This is the one weird trick that will let you get out ahead. That's the promise of cryptocurrency. So they get into Axie. They start tapping away, grinding on the game. They can only make money if other people get into it. It's like a pyramid scheme based on their labor.
Is this a predatory system? Because it's billed as a system where everyone wins.
It is mathematically impossible for everyone to win, so yeah, that's the lie of a predator.
What exactly about Axie Infinity is more fake than our current monetary system?
There's no FDIC insurance to the bank account that you have, so there's no like agreed upon from a democratic system how we account for when things go wrong.
So a lack of regulation.
Precisely. And there's no way to regulate in the Philippines as of yet the labor situation that we're talking about. Basically, people have bosses and they have to pay a certain amount of their SLP winnings to those bosses. Oftentimes, if you own the Axie, then the wallet is controlled by the owner and they have to dole out the actual money itself.
A few weeks ago, I think there was an article about how Bill Gates was calling NFTs something that's part of the greater fool theory. And I'm wondering, Edward, can you sort of explain that?
Yeah, I think the idea there is that NFTs, these digital speculative assets, they don't really have any value unless other people agree that they have value. And the way to get people to agree that they have value is to cheerlead one way or another, a lot of marketing. A lot of these companies, exchanges, firms spent a lot of money either on advertising to try to convince people that these assets were the future, or on protocols and projects that are basically, one way or another, we subsidize you for the first 6 months, year, 2 years, and make money rain down from the sky so that it can be a large enough adoption so that when we pull back the subsidies and the discounts, you actually pay the full price, we extract more fees, but it's too late because the subsidizing it and introducing people to this ecosystem, it puts them on a different track, and that now they're invested not just in this project, but usually other ones, right? Other people in Axie Infinity were not just playing that game on itself, too, or the ones I came across in the reporting, but also leveraging their money into other bets, right? Because a lot of crypto is full of bets where the idea is you put money in a box and I'll pay you 20% on it, and then you keep it in that box and then you take it out after a year, right? And that's just so that you can build up use value and hype around my product or my token or whatever it is I'm offering.
Yeah, right. Okay, so for this segment that you filmed for Showtime, at one point you try and actually go and talk to the founder of Axie Infinity, right? And in the morning of that interview, some news comes out.
You've had a busy morning.
Yeah, it's been intense. It's been a hard day.
You want to tell us about it?
Earlier this morning, we realized that the Ronin network had been exploited.
Ronin is like Axie's currency exchange, the way to turn SLP into real money. It was drained of all the crypto and US dollars moving through it at that time, resulting in the biggest on-chain heist in crypto history.
What exactly happened with that hack, and what was your reaction to that news going into that interview?
So we were in Los Angeles at a conference called NFT LA, and Jiho, as his handle is, was speaking at that conference. We had set up an interview afterwards. And so at that conference, the Jiho made the announcement that the Axie Infinity blockchain called Ronin had been compromised, and $640 million had been taken from the system in Ethereum and other
So
SLPs.
a huge amount.
It was the biggest on-chain hack in crypto history at that point.
Right.
So we're talking like an earth-shattering event. And we're talking about the guy who started this thing, or is one of the founders of this thing, having to be like, oh, hey, by the way, everybody, we just lost $640 million.
It's everybody that was transacting at the moment of the hack happening. So it was anybody that was making a transaction actively, their money was stolen.
Wow.
So we thought okay, we're not going to have an interview today with him. But he was pretty chill about it. He was like, yeah, let's do it. And so in talking about it, he was shell-shocked for sure. I think they were still learning stuff. At the time, I think their thinking was, hey, we'll probably be able to recover most of this. Maybe it's even like a bug bounty type hack where they'll give us the money back if we give them a bit of, $10 million, say, because they discovered exploits in their server, and it's basically like, cybersecurity.
Right.
Turns out it was the North Korean government who took the cash, or not cash, the cryptocurrency. The crypto, yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
The concept of this hack is both a huge deal for the investors and for the investor class, but I think it really points to when you onboard economically vulnerable people into a highly volatile and highly dangerous economic system, unregulated system, you're selling it as, oh, these are job skills for the 21st century, but you're walking them into a pool full of sharks. And that itself there's not a lot of reckoning, I think, from people who are bought into the world of crypto about that basic fact. And so yes, it was $640 million, a lot of it's VC money, but it was some of it was the money of people like the people we met in the Philippines who were trying to, buy a motorcycle or move from a hut to a house, or in addition to doing whatever job they did, go home, play for a couple hours, and try to make a little bank account to level up in their own lives.
You asked the Axie Infinity CEO about the sort of economic imbalance that the game creates, and here's how that discussion went.
Do you really think it's fun for everyone? Everyone plays the game primarily because they want to do something fun?
No, I think there are people who definitely see it more as work right now, but I think the more fun the game gets, the more balanced the economy will be over time and the more economic opportunities there will be.
So as far as this hack goes, $600 million was stolen. Are the customers, the players of this game, is anybody going to see that money again?
Well, when they took the $600 million, that was money that was also used to take coins, tokens that you got inside of the game and turn them into other tokens inside of other parts of the crypto economy, into Ethereum specifically. So once the hack happened, they weren't liquid enough to do that. They froze their exchanges where you could do that. They tried to raise about $150 million with their investors to try to refund people, partly because, as you were saying, they thought that there would be a bug bounty or something that would allow them to replenish the rest. But the fact that it was stolen for good, the fact that they don't have enough assets to actually let people exchange them, and the fact that their next few updates, which were attempts to expand the commodities that they offered and try to generate more users, have failed.
It seems like there's no chance that these people are going to get their money back.
Wow. Okay. Krishna, Edward, Sean, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for bringing us this story and telling us about it. This is fascinating stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Michael Learmonth, editor-in-chief of Vice News. Too often, traditional news outlets shy away from the real stories and experiences of those living through global conflicts. Not Vice News. Our reporters are on the ground, fearlessly covering the human stories that shape our world. You and millions of others can continue to read, watch, and listen to Vice News for free. but we hope you'll consider making a one-time or ongoing contribution of any size at vice.com/contribute. Every contribution, no matter how big or small, helps support the journalism Vice News brings to you every day. Thank you.